The longest-running Palestine-Israel conflict in modern history is not just about land, but about two timelines that never agree on where the story truly begins. For some, it starts in ancient history, for others, it begins in the 20th century. But if you follow the modern trail, the story sharpens in the late 1800s, when a political movement called Zionism began to take shape, led by figures like Theodor Herzl, who argued that Jews, after centuries of persecution in Europe, needed a homeland of their own, and that homeland, they believed, was Palestine. But Palestine was already home to an Arab population, Muslim and Christian alike, living under the fading rule of the Ottoman Empire. Two identities, one land, and no clear way to separate them. The real ignition came during World War I. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, promising support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, while at the same time making conflicting promises to Arab leaders. When the war ended, Britain took control of the territory under a mandate, and what followed was a slow-burning conflict. Jewish immigration increased, Arab resistance grew, and violence became more frequent. By the 1930s, revolts and crackdowns had already set the stage for something much bigger. Then came the turning point that reshaped everything. In 1947, the United Nations proposed partitioning the land into two states, one Jewish, one Arab. Jewish leaders accepted the plan, Arab leaders rejected it. A year later, in 1948, Israel declared independence, and war erupted immediately as neighboring Arab states invaded. For Israelis, this became the War of Independence. For Palestinians, it became the Nakba, the catastrophe. Around 700,000 Palestinians were displaced, and the map of the region was permanently altered. That single year created two completely different historical memories that still define the conflict today. But the story didn't stop there. In 1956, tensions erupted again during the Suez Crisis. Then in 1967, a lightning-fast war changed everything with the Six-Day War. Israel captured East Jerusalem, the West Bank, Gaza, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. Suddenly, millions of Palestinians came under Israeli control, and the idea of occupation became central to the conflict. It was no longer just about borders, it was about control, identity, and the future of an entire people. In response, Palestinian nationalism began to organize more formally under the Palestine Liberation Organization, led by Yasser Arafat, who became the global face of the Palestinian struggle. For decades, the conflict spread beyond borders, hijackings, guerrilla warfare, and international attention turned it into a global issue. Meanwhile, Israel fought wars to secure its position, including the 1973 Yom Kippur War, proving that the region was far from stable. And yet, in the middle of all this conflict, a surprising moment of peace emerged. In 1978, Egypt and Israel signed the Camp David Accords, brokered by Jimmy Carter, bringing the first peace agreement between Israel and an Arab country. It showed that peace was possible, but also highlighted how rare it was. By the late 1980s, frustration among Palestinians exploded into the First Intifada, an uprising against Israeli control. Images of protests, stones, and military responses spread across the world. This pressure led to what many believed could be the final turning point. In 1993, Israel and the PLO signed the Oslo Accords. Leaders like Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat shook hands on the White House lawn, promising a two-state solution. For a brief moment, history seemed ready to change. But peace is fragile. In 1995, Rabin was assassinated by an Israeli extremist, shaking the foundation of the peace process. Trust began to collapse. By 2000, negotiations had failed, and the Second Intifada erupted, far more violent than the first. Suicide bombings, military incursions, and thousands of deaths destroyed what little hope remained. Then came a shift in geography and power. In 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza, but in 2007, the Islamist group Hamas took control of the territory after winning elections and clashing with the Palestinian Authority. From that moment on, the Palestinian political landscape split in two, Hamas in Gaza, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, making a unified peace strategy even more difficult. And then, the modern era of recurring wars began. Gaza became the center of repeated conflicts in 2008, 2012, 2014, and beyond, each round more destructive than the last. Rockets fired into Israel, airstrikes hitting Gaza, civilians on both sides living under constant fear. But nothing shocked the world quite like October 7, 2023, when Hamas launched a large-scale attack into Israel, killing civilians and taking hostages. Israel responded with a massive military operation in Gaza, leading to one of the deadliest chapters in the conflict's history. Cities were reduced to rubble, humanitarian crises deepened, and once again, the world was divided, not just politically, but emotionally. And this is where the conflict becomes almost impossible to solve, because it is built on two powerful narratives that rarely meet. Israel's story is shaped by survival, especially after the Holocaust, and the belief that a strong state is the only guarantee of safety. The Palestinian story is shaped by displacement, occupation, and the ongoing struggle for statehood and dignity. Both are real. Both are deeply felt. And both make compromise incredibly difficult. Every peace effort, from Camp David to Oslo to later negotiations, has failed for the same reasons. Jerusalem remains contested, borders remain undefined, Israeli settlements continue to expand, and the question of Palestinian refugees remains unresolved. Add to this internal political divisions, shifting leadership, and regional powers like Iran and Arab states influencing the conflict, and the situation becomes even more complex. Trust is not just broken, it is inherited as broken. Now the future stands uncertain, but not unpredictable. The most discussed solution, the two-state model, is still officially supported by much of the world, but realities on the ground make it harder with each passing year. A one-state reality, where Israel controls all the land but Palestinians lack equal rights, raises fears of permanent inequality and unrest. And then there is the most immediate and likely future, a cycle of conflict that continues, flare-ups, ceasefires, and renewed violence, because the root issues remain untouched. But perhaps the most dangerous possibility is that this conflict expands beyond its borders. With rising tensions involving regional powers, every escalation risks pulling in a wider war. What began as a local dispute over land has become a global flashpoint. And so, after more than a century, the question remains unresolved, not because solutions don't exist, but because every solution demands something both sides fear losing. Land, identity, security, justice, none of these are easy to divide. And until that changes, the Palestine-Israel conflict will remain not just a battle over territory, but a struggle over history itself and over who gets to define the future.